wanted to talk about the evolution of humanism, like in our day and age, and regard to the human story, because we've evolved to this point.
Go ahead. I think you might be playing a little fast and loose with the word evolution and evolved.
Yeah, do you mean like the development of humanism, or like...
From being cavemen to us living as we do today outside of caves with technology.
So like human development as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I
spin us a story. What do we got?
Well, to personify the whole being of humanity as one there, to say it started out as a baby and has the similar personal growth steps as us as an individual, just to personify humanity. And
why? If we look at that lens, then like I see our time as more being in like a teenage state there, where he's addicted to some way of life and cares more about the short term. It feels good right now, and damn the long-term consequence.
That's a rather condescending view of humanity. I guess my first question for you is, do you think that there is an end point, a specific end point that would qualify humanity as being grown? Because if
very well could.
Well, because if you take a look at evolution by definition, right, the changes in allele frequency over time and the specific, differences that environment has when it impacts a population over ridiculously large amounts of time, right, that process of evolution by natural selection is one that is always going to keep going. There's not a younger or a end point as much as it is a descriptor of just what happens. And so we're going to be, as a species, humans, 1,000 years from now and 1,000 years after that, we might look different, but that's just a different place along the line. It's not like it's leading up to a crescendo where we hit our best point. It's just our ability to change to best suit our environment.
Yeah. As much as it would be cool to have 2 extra arms, there's no reason to think we would develop them. I don't know why I've picked that as the best.
Kano, you've been playing Mortal Kombat.
Maybe.
No, that's not Kano. That's, what's his name?
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Never
now
good at
I'm
Mortal
in
Kombat.
the weeds.
So my question is, to what end? Like, are you, sorry, just to clarify, are you calling in to explain what you believe, or like a theistic perspective on humans and human existence through the lens of a god?
Well, I was just trying to explain that I think we may be maturing as a human being.
What do you mean when you say maturing? Sorry to cut across you, but I'm just having a little bit of trouble following you.
To take the long-term view, to see what sacrifices we need to make in the short term to make those actions for the long-term benefit. And that's kind of the opposite of more teenage or adolescent mindset, where they do what feels good in the short term and don't really care about the long-term consequences. They don't make that connection.
I can say that I agree with that. Right now, the development of societies and countries and technology are such that we can do planning for the future. Like, the UN exists, and it's got 5 and 7, 10, I forget how many year plans to try and eradicate poverty, et cetera. So to the degree that as a species, we are doing better overall at planning for ourselves, I think I agree. Does that relate specifically to what you believe about the existence of a God? What is that? Even? So what, do you believe that this is guided by God? I'm sort of wondering what this role this has in relation to your belief in a God.
It's to find care for life again there. Like, I see a difference between death worship and honoring life, and I think that a lot of religious mindsets is to put heaven as a superior and earth as an inferior, so life isn't as important as heaven is. And so I think in that regard, atheists and other people care more about life and more about being more humane.
I mean, I can generally agree with that. Atheist is a wide group and encompasses some strange people. Sorry, our notes have you marked as a person that believes in the existence of a God. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Does that God have any qualities? Like, what is that? What is it that you believe exists, just to clarify?
I mean, you called an atheist show. Well,
yeah.
That's what we ask.
That's where we got to turn, yeah.
Well, my thing is about to care about life, and in many regards, religions put life at lesser value than the spiritual or the religious.
Okay.
And I it's kind of an ironic thing that it's like atheists can care about what's happening in life and life itself more than a religious person who thinks they can just go to heaven and life on earth doesn't really matter as much because heaven is superior. So my view is like, I don't know. Yes, there is. I just don't prescribe them equality at this moment.
Okay, so I agree, which is kind of a new experience on a show when a believer calls in. So you believe that a God exists, but you don't believe it has any qualities. Can I ask you what your religious background is? Were you raised in a church or a temple or a mosque or a synagogue?
I was raised pretty much in the wilderness with my parents there, and my mother always told me to care about Jesus, but not to the religious side of it. There is just man's creation, and that's how I was taught.
So when she said care about Jesus, did she teach you to care about Jesus with a Bible?
No, it was more the intention of his life in that regard there. So I have read the Bible on my own, but that's separate from going to a church.
Okay, so do you have some belief that Jesus is real, is God, and is the Son of God, and died on a cross so that all humans could be forgiven for original sin?
I interpret it differently than others. So yes.
How do you interpret it?
Well, the Holy Trinity, like there's the Son, the Father, the Holy Ghost, and the way that I've seen it is the Father was the Old Testament, and then the Son was the New Testament, and there's the Holy Ghost, and that's kind of the next phase, and that's kind of to do with humans maturing from the short-term to the long-term, in a way to circle back to my original call there. But
yeah, I mean, it seems like you were raised that organized religion is the product of human beings, but that there is this God, and like, so do you pray to God?
Life is a prayer, like your actions in life, like instead of.
Okay, but I mean, you don't like kneel and say the Lord's Prayer before.
The things I would ask God for me is what I try to aspire in action, kind of thing there. So that's in a way.
Because so far, pretty much everything you've said, except for being taught to care about Jesus, is entirely non-religious and you know, non-theistic, effectively. Like, human society is developing, religions are man-made. So I'm almost wondering why you don't say that you're not a non-believer.
I, in good conscience, in a way, I just can't bring myself to that point with the way that I view life, and I don't really identify as a religious person. I identify as a spiritual person. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, can you specify what you mean by that?
That's where we run into, like, I know you don't really like that hooey kind of stuff there, but
well, it just depends on what your definition is.
Yeah. I mean, we do keep the lines open, so we want you to call in with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the maturing of humanity and the long-term view, I kind of see as like reuniting us as a human family, because we're all one in ways with our Mother Earth, with nature, kind of thing, because we've grown from small to big, and we all this other kind of stuff.
In population size. So, I mean, the argument can be made that that's more easily done with a critical analysis of reality as it can be understood. That is to say, through scientific inquiry than through the practice of spirituality, right? Even it's critical scientific analysis also provides a better path to humanism, skepticism, and not to try and win the Miss America pageant, but to world peace as well. I'm happy to be, I'm happy to be Mr. Texas, but
do you have the boots?
I'm not wearing them right now.
I am. All right.
Yeah, but no, what I would say is, Kyle, I want to continue this conversation because the only thing I think that's holding you back from effectively, you know, well, I don't know whether you live in Austin, but stopping by the ACA is thinking more critically about what the word spiritual.
He's in Canada.
Ah, okay. Yeah, well, that's why you read the second line. So planes exist, and you should fly here. But also, you're talking very vaguely about what spirituality is. You've taken the initiative to call into an atheist show where we discuss what people believe and why. You're talking sort of in a very, very introspective way about the development of humanity and growing from small to big. I have many friends that think about the world in the same terminology that you do, but even they would say, like, I don't really believe in a God. So the question that I have to ask, because particularly in this country, when people say a God, usually they mean, oh, it's Jesus, I pray to him, and if I pray, my prayers can be answered. And as best I can tell, nothing like that exists in your vocabulary. And as best I can tell, nothing in your understanding of the world around you suggests a mystical, magical power, right? I'm very there with you in conceptual ideas of, I don't know what you mean by returning when you say returning to Mother Earth, but understanding that we're human beings, that we breathe oxygen, that this is our home, and that we need to take care of our planet, whether you call that planet Mother Earth or not. I'm wondering, what do you see as the difference between yourself and a person that would say, I'm an atheist? I mean, I'm trying not to press you too hard on this, but.
Well, it's the spiritual side there. Like, I have a view on that stuff there, and we have.
You have a beeline?
Pardon?
I didn't hear the word.
It's the spiritual side that I still stick to, and I just don't. I suck at communicating that. So.
Okay. Well, it's probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you haven't critically examined what the spiritual means, what that means even to you, right? Like, I don't know whether that means anything in your daily life. I don't know whether you pray over your food. I don't know what the difference is from that. If I had to guess, it would be a kind of feeling of positive stuff about nature, and I would really encourage you to think about what exactly that means. Are you willing to call back again next week? Because we should probably move to another caller because we've got
we've got other
good lines. Like, are you willing to call back next week or email directly?
Yes. And just to clarify, like, spirituality to me is just coming together, and I talked about reuniting the human family, and you could do that. And
if it helps at all, it might very well help you to think about the fact that that's what we do here, and we're atheists. And
the word spirituality carries with it a
ton of baggage that involves casting spells, etc.
And just, it may be easier to communicate what you mean by not using that as a descriptor.
Yes, I see it. It's a bad word, and it's not really.
Yeah. Can I get you to call in next week? Well, unless you had something you wanted to.
No. I appreciate your time, Lawrence. And you guys are great.
No, I mean that. Please call in next week. It's easier to think about things when you're not on the phone and have to respond immediately.
Okay, I appreciate the invitation. I will do so, and I appreciate your time once again.
Absolutely.
Cool.
See you next week.
Thanks, Kyle. Talk to you then.
Thanks.